I don't mind app updates, but when you move the buttons and things that I do regularly around, I get annoyed because then I can't find stuff. So thanks Zoom for the update for AI that I'm probably never going to use. But keep your buttons in the same place.
You can deactivate them. I
Oh, I
have.
know, but why throw it at me in the first place? I don't want to see that stuff.
There's a big deal about it in the business world of AI stuff and being able to take any of the information, and it's owned by so.
Well, you say that. The whole of the education system have been doing surveys for the last month about AI, how AI is going to revolutionize, destroy, literally insert any verb that's been associated with AI with education. Um, and some of the surveys are sort of finishing up all of their trying to find people that actually do surveys now. Uh, and I'm intrigued to see what some of the results are going to be, because teachers are obviously saying, "Oh, AI is going to revolutionize or destroy students," and most students aren't actually responding. But most students that are familiar with AI look at it as a positive thing. So I'm like, there seems to be a teacher bias towards this is going to be bad, but a student bias
Well, yeah,
towards
because they
this is going to
think
be
it's
good.
they think it's because it's going to replace them.
And it will if the teacher is a bad teacher,
Yeah,
which I think is good for education.
yeah,
And I would imagine it's similar in business.
yeah.
AI is going to replace the
Any
bad
anyone
people.
can. Yeah, exactly. Anyone can make up some tut and make a
I love
sales
that
page
word.
awful.
Yeah, I
But
love
if
that
you,
word.
it's quite interesting because my relationship. We're talking about AI today, in case that isn't obvious.
Oh
My
yeah,
my relationship
yeah. Hi
with AI has
everyone.
changed. It's like, hey, yeah, hi, you're here, aren't you? Hello. Like AI has become this. Oh, cool! Another tool in the toolbox
Mm-hmm.
versus something that I go to all the time,
Yeah.
and
It's
it's
funny you
not
say that because that's
doing.
how I started, and you were like, "Oh, but it
Yeah,
can do blah 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 blah," and I'm like,
yeah. No, I did.
"Meh."
Yeah, and it's very much like my shift has come now after using it quite a bit. Like, yeah, no, that's really cool. But I think my favorite, I think it's become really saturated, and now everyone's talking about it. I'm
They
not
were as
talking
soon as
about
it
it
came out, but
well.
yeah.
Yeah, but you've got it's the same thing as what happened with Notion. Now, oh, you can make lots of money with it with Notion. Loads of people join Notion. You can make loads of money with AI. Everybody's put shoved AI into their
Any sort of automation,
apps.
it's AI, even though it might not be AI. It's automation, but
Yeah. But like, I think my favorite implementation of AI so far in an app is actually in Arc Max, which they've
right.
just released as of
Yeah.
time of recording the last couple of days.
I saw that as well. Marquez was talking about it on the podcast.
And I'm like, that is really good. I am using that a lot.
I don't have Arc, I use Edge. And for those not listening that aren't familiar, maybe you could explain it. I could explain it, but I don't know the ins and outs, so it'd be better someone that actually uses it explain it. You've got more expertise than me.
It's a browser, and
Not
they kind
Arc,
of
you
it's
the AI feature.
yeah. Well, they have multiple features as part of this Arc
All right. I'm only
Max.
familiar with the one that does the summarizing of the website thingy.
It's I
He's,
can't
he's
remember.
he's looking around on his screen because he can't remember what's going on.
So
Well,
they've got one, two, three, four, five of them. They've got five features right now, as a time of recording. There is the ask on page. So if you hold down Command F, you can just ask a question and it'll answer it. That's kind of ChatGPT-esque, which you already have in Brave anyway. If
well,
I
I use
remember.
Edge, but yeah.
Edge, sorry, yeah. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Then you've got 5 second previews, which literally, if you hold shift and hover over a link, there's a summary created. That I'm loving. I've been using that a number of times now.
I'm intrigued to see how accurate that is.
It's not bad. It's accurate enough for me to know whether I want to click the link.
Interesting, because obviously with Edge, I just open it up as a new tab and split screen, and then see it similar as I would do in Obsidian.
Mm.
So, yeah,
Tidy tab titles. Uh,
I'd rename the tabs then.
yeah, automatically renames the tabs for you when they're pinned. That's pretty cool. I've used that a few times.
Right. I don't actually look at the name of the tab. I just look at the icon. Like I'm looking at my browser now, I just see YouTube 3 times and then my educational
Yeah,
science Substack thing. So
yeah.
okay.
Tidy downloads is pretty cool. Keep your many files more organized with smartly renamed downloads.
Right.
It's not bad. When I download, it just does it for me. I don't have to think about it.
Yeah,
It's
see,
not revolutionary, but it's
yeah.
helpful.
It's
It's that's the thing. It's not like, oh wow, exploding brain, but it's like that's cool. That's helpful,
yeah.
and that's kind of where it's becoming just a tool. Like,
Yeah.
cool, that's really helpful. Would I miss it if it was gone? Maybe, but
See,
it's not. It's nice.
that's the thing. My my two I don't really have any other uses. So yeah, my two uses, I was going to say my two most common, but it's just two uses. Two uses of AI is search. Like, I use AI as my search bar. Bing AI is my search bar. I rarely actually go to Bing search because I use Bing, everyone. Yes, I use Bing. I'm just going to emphasize that Bing, not Google, when people say, oh, you're going to Google that. I'm like, no, I'm Binging it. Um, yeah, so I use Bing AI as my search. The only limitation with that is when I go into my browser, I have to scroll up to get to the Bing AI chat because it defaults to the browser. But I'm like, my hands on my mouse anyway because I just have to click on Edge. When I open a new tab, it just goes, I just ask it and then it goes straight to the Bing AI anyway. So there's that, which uh, I I would struggle without now, I think, because I rely heavily on that for search. And when Bing AI struggles to find an answer to something, that's normally when I have a really niche specific question about academia, and it's like, yeah, I'm just going to throw loads of references at you because I don't really know what you're talking about. And then I go to the actual search. Scrolling up and down things is not normal for me anymore. Scrolling up
Mm.
and down results seems a waste of time. So when I see people on Google Chrome or Google or even Arc to an extent, and they're browsing up and down results, I'm like, why are you doing that? Why not just read the summary? And Elicit is the other one.
Yeah,
Elicit's AI summary is so nice. Apologies if you can hear the dog in the background, by the way. Um, but yeah, Elicit's AI summaries are so nice, and they they do it with academic research. Like that it's not, oh, this blog post said that or this blog post said
mm,
this. They look through the abstracts of research articles. And I think they actually look through more than the abstracts because some of the points that I've seen raised at the summary, so for context, you ask Elicit AI a question and it looks for academic articles that are relevant. Then it looks at the abstracts, and I think other pieces of the articles, for answers to your question. Then it creates a summary with the top. So it identifies the top articles. So either the most cited, the most recent, or the most popular for whatever reason in the using H indexes, to say, hey, these are 4 or 5 popular articles. These are what they summarized. These are just general trends of answers to this question with a list of the articles below, which you can then narrow in and do the other illicit stuff. But having that basically means I can go to Bing AI and ask it a question. And if it's basically like, no, academia, I'm confused, I go, okay, Elicit, you tell me. And Elicit goes, well, this researcher said this researcher said that,
said
these
that.
people said this, go explore. And I'm like,
And it's really interesting because when you do use that, it's like there's not really a conclusion to the question you're asking. We don't really know. And it's like these people, they tell you what different people believe
hmm.
and then go, there's no solid conclusion. And I'm like,
and
I like that.
and that's the thing, which obviously we'll get to Tiago's video in a minute. there's no
Mm.
summary, there's no conclusion, there's no end, there's no TLDR. It's Bing says, here's a load of sources of information that I got and found for you. Go and explore or ask me another question. Elicit says, hey, here's some papers. The papers are normally like 30 pages long. And we've given you some points from their abstract. If any of this is interesting, have a look at the paper and it will bring it up in a tab in Elicit, or go
And then
have
you
a
can
look at
ask
all the other
questions,
papers.
and then you could ask questions about the paper. You ask
Yeah.
questions to the paper. The paper then reads through the paper and answers those questions you might have. And then if it doesn't know the answers, it just tells you they don't know the answers.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a obvious thing. With AI, it's not. They
If it
have
says,
trained the
sorry,
AI
I don't
so
know.
well.
Yeah.
They've trained that. They've really like tweaked the AI to actually just go, don't know. They don't say anything. They don't say anything. Which I'm like, yes, thank you.
And that's the problem that I find with the summaries. Before we get to Tiago again, when I see people talking about summaries, whether it's in Notion or Obsidian or literally any app that uses AI summaries, summary, including Motion Assist, where it's doing the Slack Assist agenda thing, the summaries make assumptions. And they
Mm.
make different assumptions to what you may make sometimes being good, sometimes being bad, but it makes assumptions. Philosophy Tube recently released a video about ethical AI. I don't know whether you've seen it. It's like an hour long because that's what they do in their
Yeah,
videos. It's a video
I
essay
watched
that's
it.
like an hour, and they released it yesterday evening. But they talk about ethical AI. And I mean, they're referring to gender discrimination and isolating, categorizing people, etc., etc. That's their narrative of the story. But we're coming back to the note taking and summarizing of these ideas, which has been my gripe the whole time. It makes assumptions, but if you don't make those assumptions, then the summary isn't as useful, and I would argue debilitating. When I was trying to make summaries, I'm like, that's not summarizing what I said. It's summarizing the words that are in the page, but not what I said, because it's made assumptions about what you're trying to say, because AI doesn't think. It can't think. It just uses algorithms to create an answer, which is not the way humans think. Humans don't think in algorithms because we're not machines. Uh,
Yeah.
and when I looked at the summaries past tense, I didn't like them. I look at them now, I still don't like them. So I don't use them. I don't find a benefit in them unless the information that I'm sharing is literally bullet point information, at which point you've already made your summary.
Which leads us quite nicely onto Tiago's video.
Yep. This was John's idea.
Yeah, and I'm not attacking Tiago personally. I'm attacking the idea
Mm-hmm.
because
I just want to like emphasize that. Yes, Tiago's talking about it, but it's the idea we're discussing.
yeah,
It's
not
the
him.
concept.
Because yeah, nothing but respect for his idea. They're interesting. They got me where I am now.
Mm.
So everyone likes to vilify
Villainize. Villainize. Yeah.
vilify and villainize people when they critique ideas, but
No.
this idea sucks.
We I, th- I think we need to separate separate the thinking
Yeah,
from the person.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But anyway, with all the caveats aside, I was watching that video and I had a feeling I know where he was going to go. I was
I,
intrigued and I'm
I
like,
saw the
oh,
thumbnail. I was like, I know what he's gonna say.
I was like, that's intriguing. Okay, cool. But where's all the context gone? Don't you lose context with ChatGPT? Okay, cool. Let's go see what this is. And then I'm like, all right, cool. You're gonna save hours of time. Cool, awesome. That sounds good. I like saving time. Maybe I can start reading books again, and then I'll use ChatGPT to summarize it. And I came in like, and then he was like, I used to read 50 books. I'm like, but why? Why are you reading 50 books? It doesn't help or do well. I want to be able to keep things, and I'm just like, yeah, but you're using this whole concept of this whole entire video is around using ChatGPT. So are you really keeping it in your what?
The thing
You're
the
not
thing I get
learning.
the thing I get confused at And Nat Eliason discussed this with Kehi recently, is the need for this productivity markety stuff. I mentioned to John before this, Tiago's video is 10 minutes and 29 seconds. I would argue, for me, there's maybe 4 minutes of value, however you define value, in that video. You could make it shorter quite easily. When I think about, I'm going to go sideways to come back. Ross Atkins is a BBC News presenter, and they're not explainer videos because they're sort of one-stop shop summary videos of a typically political topic. But he explains what's going on. And he's written a book. It's become very popular. He's a very popular presenter in the BBC because he is fairly impartial. He's very particular with the data, the numbers, the evidence, the stats he uses. And he gives both sides to most arguments. But what he does really, really well is he gets to the damn point. Like, he gets to the damn point really quickly. And I listened to a conference meeting that he held a few months back. It's only got 400 views, but this is what I listened to on YouTube. And he was saying that you need to have depth and you need to remove all redundant information because people just don't care. And if they clicked on the video, they're already interested in the topic. So you don't need to make them interested in the topic. You need to explain what is essential, so essential information, and explain what is confusing. And when I look at Tiago's video, what is the essential pieces of information? Well, he's using ChatGPT to summarize his books, which you see in the thumbnail. Yeah.
The essential information is the thing he links to.
Yeah.
Prompt.
Yeah. But I mean, the other points that he brings into the video, I wouldn't say is like essential to what he's doing. They are things that are potentially confusing that he's trying to explain.
Marketing.
Oh, definitely. That's the other stuff. But and that's what the rest of the video is. The rest of the video is the marketing stuff, which for me is redundant. And using Ross Atkins sort of like as a case study here, Ross would be like, no, we're cutting that from the video because no one cares. They've already clicked on the video. And the productivity marketing stuff, which is the first like 3 minutes of the video, I just skipped through. I just sat here with the arrow key going next. Because I didn't need it.
The thing that my immediate takeaway was like, okay, cool, you're gonna show how to use AI, but he's not.
And that's where I'm getting at.
And I'm just like, but you're not. You're using your progressive summarization technique.
Which is the confusing part.
Yeah, and that's the bit that got me. I was like, wait, what? I was expecting a video on AI, but you're telling me to spend all this time still. How much more time does it take to go from the progressive summarization? Like, all of the grunt work is still being done in his video. Spoilers if you care. Like, it's literally, oh, so now you want to do progressive summarization. And I like the idea of progressive summarization. It's a cool concept. However, I'll just skip to the last bit where I just take the key points right from the beginning.
Yep.
And that was one of one of the things that I struggled with BASB is like, oh, well, how much do I take? And I saw that in the comment. Well, how much do you take on the first pass? How much do you do with it? How do you decide that? And I'm like, I don't know. Okay, I'll just highlight big swathes of sections then. But then when I highlight those big swathes of sections, the stuff that I take is the stuff I want to see. Why am I summarizing it further and further and further? For what purpose? And then when you put it into, I'm going to try it with some more complicated books and see what happens. Have you?
I tried it with the first 4 parts. Well, basically the first chapter of the EcoPsych book.
That was what I was thinking of doing it with. How well did that
go? Well, as you can imagine, obviously, depending on what you input to ChatGPT, well, I didn't use ChatGPT. I used Bing, just disclaimer. So ChatGPT may come up with some other results. But depending on what you put in is going to change what comes out. So the progressive summarization, if you're, quote, bad at progressively summarizing, then the output is going to be vague. So when I just dumped in all of the sort of like the big lumped highlights that I had from parts of the chapter, it just basically just spewed out what I put in. It was like,
And the thing is, that is what most people are going to do. To
yeah.
save themselves some time, they're going to take their Readwise highlights or just normal highlights that we use,
Yeah.
free, um, and dump that in.
Yep.
They're not going to do the middle step, which is, according to him, the key part where you're already summarizing your summary. When you create an outline already, where you're
Mhm.
reinforcing the information from the book, which was his point. And
This
then you're using ChatGPT to take a summary of a summary of a summary to create a summary.
and this right here is where I know this is going to get philosophical again, but this is
Yay.
where his view on the way that he thinks the brain works, and it's an assumption used by most people because it's from
Yeah.
cognitive psychology, because it's not thinking, it's I'm doing this little bit of thinking, but I want a summary elsewhere. No, you are remembering by thinking, because thinking is remembering. They are the same thing. And the argument he's trying to make is he needs to summarize the information. One, why do you need to summarize it? And two, why do you need to be able to remember it? If you can't remember it, there's a reason you can't remember it. It's not relevant to you right now. Like the
And
environment.
that I think you touched on something really important there. Right now.
Hmm.
Because often it's like, oh, it's not important. Yeah, but it is important. I feel it's important. Yes, it probably is, but not right now. In this context, it is not. But when it is, then come back. Let's chat.
And when we say context, if those listening are familiar with ecopsych, that's the organism, environment, relationship.
Yeah.
Like if that relationship, that context doesn't require that amount of information, then you don't need it. And the whole progressive summarization thing, do I do it? I guess you could argue I do it depending on what metrics and things you put on there. But do I highlight things? Yes. Do I highlight big sections like Thiago? No. Do I add bolds to highlights? No. Do I make an outline of those highlights? No. I pick up highlights and then I use the highlights in the projects. Like I do the thing. I use the stuff. I don't write about the thing to make summaries to look back at the summaries at some point in time. No. I make highlights and then I put the highlights in projects that I'm going to work on. Then when I get to those projects, the context, I then use it. Do I go back to the source? Yes, that's why I put the source in there. But I don't need to do the rest of this progressive summarization thing because it's just thinking about a topic. And what I've actually found is when you use AI to do the summaries, it goes off in a direction that you actually disagree with. I actually disagree most of the time with AI and end up having an argument with it. Like,
Yeah.
not literally having an argument with it, but I sit here and go, no, that's not right. That's not accurate. You've simplified that too much. And this is very reminiscent of the conversations that I have on social media. You say something, another person goes, oh no, that's not right. And I look at the comment back and I'm sitting there going, but you're using like so many assumptions there, so many heuristics, and you've oversimplified the labels and the categories of information that you're using, and the meaning behind the words are therefore redundant. So your point doesn't make any logical sense in this argument. And
Which
then you
makes
have to
perfect sense.
depict
Which
it all.
actually makes perfect sense that the AI is doing that, considering the data it is trained on.
But that's what you're asking it to do. AI, you're asking AI to simplify and to categorize, label, congest things together to make it easily digestible. But in order to do that, it needs to understand the nuances of what it is you're trying to say, but it can't because it doesn't think.
And unless you tell it, if you tell it the context you want, it is better.
Mm.
Still, it's not drag and drop, pop it in the document and off you go. But that's why you've got to be clear on that context. And by the time you've clarified the context, you'll have figured it out yourself
This
because you're
this is
more attuned to that.
this is something else that Ross Ross said this was like a side comment because working for the BBC, obviously, he's got all of these resources and things. He said this is a side comment, and most people in the audience didn't care because they were typical journalists, like they're like writing journalists, they're writing articles and stuff in newspapers and things. But because him and his team make videos, they produce videos for the BBC. They talk about the medium at which you're expressing information, and what he said. This is paraphrasing, but make the medium appropriate for the message. He then expanded on this and said, because we're making videos, I don't need to say the name of said prime minister, national person, or anything, because they could put a photo and a name on screen. I don't need to list all of these different places because they can put a map on screen. I don't need to add context in the words I'm using because I can use visuals to supplement the information.
And
Yeah.
a good example of that was Tori's experience to your audio.
Yeah. Yeah. Very.
Because the questions she had were directly related to the lack of context that wasn't in your video because it was the audio version, which didn't have the video on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the pictures and the images and the information. It's really interesting.
Yeah. And moving this back then to AI and the AI summaries, if AI is summarizing information and the medium is only text, well, the bits that Ross would remove from the text and put into the video, AI just removes or oversimplifies to get it in the word count. They become the undergraduate student realizing, oh shit, I've got too many words. I need to cut words out. And then the sentences suddenly don't make any sense.
Yeah.
That's what AI is. That's what it was to start with for me. And I don't think it's moved forwards anywhere when it comes to using AI to think. And that is what Tiago is promoting, using AI to think. Because summaries of books, summaries of ideas is part of thinking. Can AI do copywriting? Yes. I would argue that is shallow thinking. That is rewording. Yeah. There is some sort of algorithmic process that you can follow there. Can you use it to pick out certain parts of a script? Yeah. Can you use it to remove ums and ahs from audio? Yeah. Can you use it to create visuals and do all the other things that AI is doing? Yeah, that's great, but that's not deep thinking. Mm-hmm. Deep thinking is inherently.
Sorry, I think that is where AI is valuable. Is in the shallow
deep thinking or the other bit?
No, in the shallow stuff.
I was going to say, excuse me, I'll slap you.
In the shallow stuff. When it's the shallow stuff, that's when it's useful. Because, I mean, my perhaps wishful thinking and how I think about using it is it allows me to do the deep thinking. Instead of having to do all the shallow thinking first, it does all the boring stuff that I don't really want to do, but need to do because it's part of what I've got to do. It is the reality of, the environment I'm in. So I need to do that, but I don't want to do that, but I can do this. So I'll do this bit. In a business context, no, you don't like sales pages? Okay, fine. Get AI to write your first draft. Give it as much context as possible. The more context you give it, the better it's going to be, and it's not going to be as shallow and disgusting and horrible.
This also relates to the calendar automations that I've been exploring, like Motion. Calendar automations are great, but you've got to give it so much information for it to put things in a place that is logical to you that you might as well just do it yourself.
I think it's very much like the upfront work. Once you have a prompt that works and you have created something that matches your needs precisely, whether that be custom instructions in ChatGPT Pro or whatever it might be, once you have that, it's fantastic.
But that still requires you to input things in the prompt because it's not like a template where you just push the button and template the response because it's thinking. You've got to input the words.
Oh yeah, you've still got to work. You've still got to actually do the thinking part, which is which is good. Which is kind of
Tiago does mention that.
Yeah, and you've still got to do the work up front.
Mm.
which I think is always going to be the case with AI.
Hmm.
And it's once you've done the upfront work, then it becomes a little bit less work. Or you'll realize, oh, wait, hang on, I can't do this, I can't do that. I think you mentioned something that I see his face, but can't remember his name, said around like making your work AI
Seth
proof.
Godin
Yes, that's his name, Seth Godin, about the content that you produce. And it's
or Ross
interesting because every
Atkins?
time, huh?
Seth Godin or Ross Atkins?
Seth Godin,
Okay.
around how the if AI can produce your what you would write, it's not good enough.
Yep.
Summarized very much,
Yeah. But,
but
well, but
but
that's
it's not
that's
good
what
enough.
that's what Seth's been talking about for years. Like, if your job can be replaced by a machine or an automated thing, then you're not creating value. That's what he's talking about inside of marketing. Like, how do you find value in yourself? Well, if you can be replaced by a robot, then you're not that valuable because you're replaceable. Don't be replaceable. I can't remember the exact words that he uses because it's not something I personally follow, subscribe to that much. But I do like the idea and follow the idea in that if you can be replaced by a robot, by a machine, then your value drastically decreases, which is obviously what a lot of people are worried about. Oh, AI is going to replace my job. Well, make it so that it can't. Do something in your job that AI can't do. In other words, be creative, be a creative person, be a thinking organism.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I would love schools to be able to teach people, but school issues, blah, blah, blah. But that to me is the frustration I have with people talking about AI, is that they don't consider the person. They consider what AI can do in relation to the job, not relation to the person doing the job.
Mm.
Because can people do more in the job? Yes. So why don't we talk about that? Why don't we talk about the needs of the person in the job and maybe reduce some of the constraints that the job has put on the person so the person can do more in the job? Why would the person want to do more in their job? Because people get bored at work, which is why they mess around and go on their phone. Bore out is a thing. I know people talk about burnout, but bore out is a thing. You know, it's the same with sport. It's the same with fun activities, hobbies, the rest of it. Like, if you get bored, you're not going to sit there and do nothing in silence. You're going to find something to do. Finding something to do, maybe you just reduce the constraints so the person can do more of their job in a different way.
Mm.
Because
And I
everyone
think,
follow
yeah,
the lazy person. Everyone will find a shortcut.
yeah, and I think that's so, yeah, it's just so good, just makes sense.
Hmm. Something I want to ask you about this note-taking, progressive summarization, AI stuff is I feel like there's a bit of uh I'm just going to say a bit of circle jerking around with the whole like, oh yeah, look at me note taking about note taking, and look at me taking notes on this book that tells me how to take smart notes. Sort of like it's all going around in circles, and I know it, I've seen it, I get frustrated at it. I've been part, or I guess I'm sort of part of it because I talk about note taking on like note taking apps. But when I look at the videos, the notes in my videos are research notes. They're not notes about like how to take smart
Notes.
notes. They're not notes about building a second brain. They're notes about ecological psychology or notes about expertise. The practical notes for me, anyway, as a researcher. So my question is, when it comes to the PKM BASB note taking space, um, where do you see the people like practicing? Can you think of people that are practicing what they preach, as it were?
No,
Okay, because the bigger people are obviously talking about the note taking stuff because that's what the business is. So it's understandable there. What?
this made me someone. I watched a video the other day, and this might be a call out. Sorry, not on
Why are you
you, but
sorry?
I'm not.
Just call them out. This is post peer review. Come on, I've been knee deep in the academic peer review process this week. So yeah.
I watched a video that was talking about Ali Abdaal and his whether his like
Horse cohort
YouTuber
can be.
academy was
Yeah,
any good.
I've seen a few of them.
And one of the things he said was, "I'm one of the most." Ali Abdaal is one of the most productive people around, and I'm like, "No, he's not. No, he's not. I don't think he is."
Uh, It obviously it depends on how you define productive, but I would agree he's not
Like,
as productive as he could be.
and that's the thing.
I guess caveat here: I have spoken with Ali. I do know Ali fairly well, so I'm familiar with him and most of his team. So I'm not talking out my arse here. I sort of know what's going on.
I am, but it's just a sense I get. Like it is just a sense of like,
Don't get me wrong, he is a productive guy.
oh yeah,
But when you compare him to other people, there are people far more productive. Other
and
people
I think that's
being
really
like Brandon Sanderson as an example.
my my issue comes with the most productive person,
Yeah.
and I'm like, no,
He's
no.
he's certainly the person that's spoken the most about productivity on
Yeah,
YouTube.
he's spoken about productivity a lot.
I,
He's
I
not
think it's
necessarily.
I think it might be because he's memeable as well. Like when you think about, oh yeah, I watch anime at times three speed, like that's memeable.
Yes, that's true.
I mean,
That's
he doesn't
true.
do it anymore, but he used to. He tried to. And look at me, I can type almost 200 words a minute. Like, it's really fast. Like this, he has old memeable content that, I mean, it's funny. Like everyone sort of understands the joke, but again, it pushes this idea, this social idea, this that he is the productive guy. Obviously, Thomas Frank was there, and I would argue Thomas Frank is probably more productive than Ali now. But
He was
Thomas,
the person I was thinking about. That's what I was just about to say. Like Thomas Frank is more like I. He is a machine. Like there's so much he's doing. Like I would look at Thomas Frank when I think of productive in this, even in just the sphere we are in.
yeah,
It's like,
but there's a difference there, and it's an obvious difference. Is uploads. Thomas Frank is focused on the practice. He's focused on the work. He's focused on getting stuff done inside of like the practice rather than the business. Ali is a business person, and he'll openly say that as well. He is a business person. And as a business person, he is very productive. But as a business person, he's not typically doing the practice, which is personally why I would argue it took him so long to write the book.
yeah, probably is.
Because he's not in the practice. And as someone that is familiar with how much research goes into writing a book, because I mean, I've helped a few people write books. I know how what writing a book is, and I work with people that are in academia, and they write dissertations all the time. They write papers all the time, and a book is what 300 pages and doesn't have anywhere near as many references as a dissertation, which is sometimes upwards of 20,000 words.
Yeah.
But I know what goes into it. And if you're not in the practice and you need to find research studies, you need to understand what you're saying, the ideas, the concepts, and thinking, it takes time.
Yeah.
And yeah, where were you going with the course stuff, by the way? You were saying that he's the productive person.
It's so fascinating to me. And then you've got Kehi, who's recently just gone, I'm abandoning productivity. And I'm like, I like it.
I do
I
and
haven't
don't.
watched, I like it, and then I'm a little bit suspicious. There's a little bit of like, uh,
My my struggle with the narratives they're spinning, I understand it because it's marketing. But I think Seth Godin would actually have a problem with me saying that because it's not just marketing. I would say, I would argue Seth would suggest it's ineffective marketing or it's effective marketing for a niche audience. Because if you're looking to market to more people, he would argue it's ineffective because it's using categories and binaries. It's using the labels and it's using public misinterpretation of the term productivity and the, well, lacking of nuance meaning of productivity in a way
It
to market their work.
it's
Like,
anti-product. It's anti-productivity productivity,
exactly, which is
which I find really frustrating and annoying. It's the same thing with like the glorification of disorganization in neurodiverse people. Of like, ah, being disorganized is great and fun and it's normal and it's okay. Then why do you hate it so much?
so
Like,
why'd you try to organize stuff?
then why do you try to organize? If it because that's exactly where I've come, where I am at now. Yes, I'm disorganized, or am I? No, I'm not. I'm self-organized.
That's why I love the term organized mess.
Yeah,
Like, it looks like a mess to you, but it's organized to me.
and that's the thing. They're so obsessed with. I watched a video ADHD and their home. Did you how to ADHD and their home tour?
I have watched it, yes.
And I'm
I've
like,
watched a couple because she's done a couple in the past.
yeah, she's just recently done a new one, and I'm like, yes, I like that. Yes, I like. Yeah, but the thing that I found really frustrating was
Hmm.
like, oh, I have tidied up, and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why? If you are showing what it's really like, show what it's really like. Show the actual environment that you live in, because then you are removing that, like,
Well, you're changing the environment if you clean up.
yeah, and you're changing that environment. It's a mess.
If
Okay,
you if
cool.
if you change the environment, the relationship is different. So when you're trying to expose the relationship you have, organism, with the environment, house, and you've tidied it up, the relationship is different. So what you're showing is different from what actually happens, which means I would argue that's going against the proposal
Mm,
of the video. You're not being
yes.
integral. You're not behaving in a way that matches your philosophy, which is the thing that I struggle with when I watch a lot of ADHD creators. I'm going to call them
Yeah.
ADHD creators because they identify themselves with the label rather than the needs of the people that could be using the, I guess you could say, advice.
I think that's the sad part. Like when I in the business world, I was like, I'm I think I know one business owner who actually follows their own philosophy about being, and she calls it a hot mess.
Mm-hmm.
And she's genuinely very happy to say I am a hot mess. And I'm like, yes, I
Would
know.
you count me in that as business owner?
I suppose. Not really. No, I wouldn't. You're an educator.
But I have a bit. I have a couple businesses technically because YouTube channels.
I guess you are a business owner, I suppose.
Yeah. Do I hit the
You are
integral button?
definitely not a hot mess, though.
No, no, I'm hot, just not a mess. Um, I've got to boost my ego sometimes. Uh, would you say I'm integral to my behaviors and my philosophy?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. Otherwise, I'd be worried.
Yeah.
I was having a look through my pop. Well, I say I was having a look through my pop. I was in my pop actively adding things to it yesterday because the the way I was looking at the educational science videos, I was taking a different approach. So some of the videos that the videos that I've done on that channel are obviously explainer-ish. They're video essays, right? And I've approached them as video essays. And what
Mm.
I recognized is, even though video essays are useful, they're storytelling, they do loads of positive things. When it comes to introducing people to a topic or exposing an idea that's embedded within a philosophy or research, it can't be. It's not, it can't be. It's difficult for it to be within a story, within an essay, unless the person viewing the essay, viewing the documentary, viewing whatever it is, already understands a fair amount of the thing. So it's either got to be in the news, it's got to have lots of people that's spoken about it before that you can quote or reference, or they've got to be in the community, right? And this is why I was looking at Ross Atkins, when I was looking at the news and comparing that to the video essays that I've done so far, I look at them and go, why did the fraud video do so well? It's over 100,000 views. But why did the other two videos not do so well? Because when I wrote them, when I was in the practice, I did exactly the same thing. So I was looking at the differences. And the main differences that I found was the fraud video was a Ross Atkins explainer. It was an explainer video. It was, this is what has happened. This is the essential information you need to know. This is where I was confused and how I can explain this to you. And then at the end, saying a little bit else. And looking at the audience retention, the people that paid attention, like I can see a massive drop off when I went into like video essay storytelling mode. So for visual purposes, those watching on YouTube, you'll see it. But it's sort of every YouTube video starts going down unless you're like a Mr. Beast shouting at the camera every like second. So it goes off and then levels out. And then I start talking about the story. Like, this is the story of Francesca Gigi, and it starts to go down again. It's like another drop of 10% of the audience goes. And then it basically just flatlines at like 40%. It like slowly decreases 1% every minute or so as I'm going through the explainer. Whereas when I look at the other videos, it's not all over the place. You still have the drop, you still have the flat line, but there are peaks and troughs at different points. So there are obviously points in the video where people have gone, okay, that's essential information. I want to know what that is. Or that's confusing information. I want to know what that is. And the views are much, much lower because of the way YouTube works, average view duration, etc., etc. And I was looking at my pop and I was reassessing the values, the philosophy that I hold when it comes to sharing educational information. And the more I looked at the values that I hold in education, and the more I look at the research that I'm familiar with, the more I realized the video that I was doing was an entertainment video. It was an entertainment video about a topic that I'm interested in, which isn't a bad thing. But that goes against the values that I hold inside of education. And this is something that I didn't recognize. And this is why it's so important to go back to your pop, to go back to your philosophy of practice, because I was holding myself true to my behaviors in practice. And I was holding myself true to the way I was doing the video essays. The video essays were the best video essays I could do at the time, holding true to all of my philosophy. But if I realign what I want to do with the Educational Science channel, well, I don't realign. When I reassess what I want to do with the Educational Science channel, that's where I'm looking at the data coming in now and going, that works, that doesn't work. I now need to change. And unless you really assess that, it doesn't change. Now, when would I do that review? Do I do that daily, monthly, weekly, yearly? Is it a review? No. it was an ongoing thing that was happening as one video was exploding and the other videos weren't. Why was that video getting big? And that was my trigger. That was my cue to review what was going on. It wasn't, I need to do this every month. It wasn't a time thing. It was, okay, something's happening. In practice, in the real world, something is happening. Let's assess it. I feel like that was something I wanted to share with you, obviously, because we're going backwards and forwards with this sort of stuff. And I think that's helpful when it comes to cueing, when you look back at your philosophy of practice. Because there are parts of my pop where I look at it and go, I'm still holding true to that. That's pretty good of me. And I wasn't actively thinking, oh, you need to do this, 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 and this, and you need to behave like that. I was just doing it. There wasn't anything that stuck out to me and said, you're not doing this, which is positive. And that I think is as beneficial as looking at going, I could improve like this. Sometimes it's not about improving. Sometimes it's about going, yes, I'm doing what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
And Danny monologue.
Excellent monologue.
John, your turn. When did you last look at your pop?
when was it? I think it was last week. I looked at my pop and just because I'm slowly going through it because there's a lot going on in life, and it kind of what you just said triggered me about my pop as well. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to write that down there because one of the words that I am defining or trying to find my definition of
Meaning of
is the coaching word.
what the
Is
word of
coaching.
just coaching.
Yeah, or coach, or like what is a coach? Because that was one of the big like trigger words for me to not call myself a coach because of the business and like how business is. Good business doesn't feel like coaching.
Okay. This is part of your lexicon, I assume.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So when you think of a effective coach, what do you think? Like what characteristics, what behaviors, what sort of things do you come up with? And don't use AI
So
to summarize it because
can you use
actually
what sorry?
I'm gonna if we have a look at AI, what does AI say about coaching? What is coaching? I assume you're going to use ChatGPT.
No, I'm going to use Claude.
Claude, what's Claude?
It's I wouldn't say it's better, but it's just another. You get some interesting approaches. It's different to ChatGPT.
Right, I've literally just asked Bing what is coaching, and it's given me a couple of paragraphs with links, obviously, because Bing uses links. I'm just going to read you the first sentence. Coaching is a form of development in which an experienced person called a coach supports a learner or client in achieving a specific personal or professional goal by providing training and guidance. That's the first line with two references. Going to Wikipedia,
So,
which I
um,
wrote.
is that what you wrote? Is it?
That's what I wrote on Wikipedia like last year. So they quoted myself to me. Thank you.
Love it. According to Claude, is coaching is a developmental process in which an experienced, knowledgeable person, the coach, supports and guides another individual, the coachee, in achieving personal or professional goals and developing skills and capabilities through focused training and guidance. And then
So
it
basically the
gives
same thing.
key aspects of coaching include.
Oh yeah, go on, go on. What are the key
Key aspects of
aspects?
coaching include goal orientated focus,
Okay.
personalized approach. They have descriptions of all of this,
Yeah.
but can't be asked. Self-discovery, accountability, skill building, forward-looking perspective, and collaborative relationship.
Yeah.
The
I
overall
mean,
purpose is to unleash the coachee's potential and maximize their personal or professional performance and growth.
so theoretically, because Bing basically says the same thing, theoretically, we know what coaching is now. So what is your struggle with your meaning of coaching? Because we've got the properties, as it were.
I think I think it is a lack of do I struggle with the meaning of the word or do I struggle with the relationship to my environment? Maybe it's more that
We,
and like how I
meanings are in people, not words.
yeah.
So your meaning behind coaching is going to relate because relationship relate to the practice.
Hmm.
So your personal lexicon, this is why I said meaning rather than definition.
Yeah.
Your meaning behind coaching is related to you. What we've read is essentially popular definitions of what coaching is. Yeah. And that to me is the difference between a lexicon and a dictionary. So for you, I'm guessing your struggle is what does it mean? What does it look like to be a coach?
Yes. I think that is like the struggle. Because I read that and I'm like, okay, yes. But there is
Something missing?
yes.
So what isn't a coach? Is it someone that is not giving people goal directed behaviors? Is that not coaching?
Not necessarily. Maybe it is my I suppose issue is putting coaching on a pedestal. Like as a coach, putting it on a pedestal, that might be where like my personal definition was a coach is someone who is better than another person. Perhaps.
So you're making an assumption that a
Yes.
coach, yeah, you're making an assumption that a coach needs more what than the learner.
Expertise,
In what?
everything, which I know is it doesn't make sense, but that
Okay.
is my gut reaction of like they need experience in everything. They have to have their life fully put together to be a coach.
Okay, so now we're differentiating between the two
Yeah.
different words there, because you've got coaching and coach.
Oh yeah.
For me, a coach is a profession.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a noun. It's a profession. Coaching is very similar to educating.
Mm.
So what's the difference between teaching, educating, and coaching? And then what's the difference between an educator, a teacher, and a coach? Finding the differences in those 6 words, for me, I did at university. And obviously foster and dynamically change as time goes on. But finding the differences in those words helped me understand what it is that I do. I would argue I am a coach
Yes.
because I do have qualifications, but most of my time is spent coaching. I
Mm.
wouldn't classify myself as a coach in most environments. I am a trampoline coach, I am a football coach, I am a handball coach, and I am a sports coach. I am not a business coach. I am not a YouTube coach. I am not an entrepreneurship coach. I am not loads of other different coaches, but
Mm.
I do coach in those environments. So I'm coaching people to be an entrepreneur. I am coaching people to help with YouTube. I'm coaching people through note taking. And I don't think you need a coach professional qualification to
To
coaching,
be
to do the
coaching.
coaching. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's me though. That's my
That
meaning.
distinction. Yeah.
Because when you look at parents, for example, I would say parents do a lot of teaching, but they're not teachers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think
It's
teachers
interesting.
teachers uphold certain standards and quality professional standards that parents don't have. And that's the difference, obviously, that's going on in America at the moment with the homeschooling and the PragerU stuff with parents' rights and things. Parents do teach, yes, but they're not teachers. There's a difference.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. So does that help clear up your thinking behind the lexicon and meanings? Or obviously you're
Yeah.
still gonna have to go in a bit, but
Oh yeah, I'm gonna dive in further, but having them separated is actually really coaching. Yeah, that like the coach versus coaching and the teach versus teaching, the teacher versus teaching. That's kind of like, ooh, that's
yeah.
stuff to play.
Where do you think those differentiators came from when I was looking at my lexicon? What
Where do I
philosophy?
think?
What philosophy shifted coach and coaching?
I don't know.
For those that are unfamiliar, ecological psychology looks at verbs rather than nouns.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I was like, oh yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
think what I might, yeah, I want to put that thing. Yeah,
just do it. Yeah. So for those listening in while John's typing away, when we consider nouns or labels and categories, typically the medical model of categorizing humans, it's a nouned label, i.e., coach, often has properties that we can assign to the noun, to the thing, to the object. In this case, a qualification and a sport, you have certain subject knowledge, those sorts of things. Whereas a verb, which is what the ecological approach looks at, focuses on processes and how to enact, how to behave in certain ways in dynamic contexts, which means properties are ever changing. They are dynamic. You can't say, oh, coaching does this or is this.
Yeah.
Because in a different context, it's not. Which is why ecological psychology, the ecological approach to explaining these things and the meaning behind those words is so much different, which means when you're explaining your experiences, instead of using these properties for assumptions, you don't have the properties as assumptions because you're using a verb, which means it depends all the time, which is why academia is so much more vague than the medical diagnosis of whatever it is that you're talking about, because the academics go, it depends, or let's just talk about more philosophy here, which is why a lot of the time academics don't give you protocols and like things to do, because it depends on the environment you're in, the relationship between you and the environment you're in. There are things you can do that are evidence-based, which are more effective, yes, but caveat, it's not effective in every environment, which is what academics discuss. That's like the whole point of academia.
I think one thing that's come up, it was the relationship and the assumption I made that there is a hierarchy. I made an assumption that teaching is worse or better than coaching. A teacher is a lesser form than a coach, or a teacher is a higher, like whatever it may be, but there's a hierarchy.
So it's normally the other way around. People assume teachers are better than coaches, but
and I think one of the things that came up for me is like, no, that's context. That's got nothing to do. Yes, in some respects, teaching is more ecologically valid. It is more needed at this time, depending on what's happening.
Can be.
Can be, but also can't at the same time. It varies.
Yeah, what you're doing, whether you're teaching or whether you're coaching or whether you're just educating, will change.
Depends on the context. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have the definition of effective coaching inside of your thingy?
I don't think I do.
I can't remember where I have it. Let's just go find.
Yeah, because that was one of the things I was like, oh, I need to take that.
Definition of effective coaching. Yeah, actually, I can just search definition of effective coaching. There it is. I love Obsidian. it's so good. Now I actually have to find the full definition. No, competence specific. No, there are too many good definitions of coaching. Coaching knowledge, coaching outcomes, coaching context, interpretation. No, where I've written it somewhere. I know I've written it somewhere. I'm just looking at the entire source document because it's a full paper that's got so many references. Actually, let's just find consistent. There we go. So, this is where I use this. I used to use this definition a lot. I was going to cite it, but then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to read it out that way I don't mess it up. The consistent application of integrated professional, interpersonal, and intrapersonal knowledge to enhance athletes' competence, confidence, connection, and character in specific coaching contexts. Now, if you replace athlete with student and replace coaching with teaching, very, very similar. You replace athlete or student with child and replace coaching with parenting or educating. It's essentially interchangeable. Does that mean those words are interchangeable? No, because the very last word of that entire sentence is contexts. And context relates to all the other words that were there: professional, interpersonal, and intrapersonal. And then competence, confidence, connection, and character. So all of those in context change depending on whether you're coaching, educating, or teaching.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love it.
Nice.
I do love that. I do love that. I love that whole quote.
Yes. Yeah, it is very nice. It's very encompassing. And actually, I can... Oh, here's a question. I'm going to copy and paste a Obsidian link into the Morgan description because I know it works for me. It didn't work. Okay, never mind. I was going to say I could copy and paste the link to Obsidian to the Morgan description because it links for me, but it doesn't link for you because it's a local link. That's unfortunate. But yeah, the file is... Have you found the file, the source file? So bracket at, and then COTE integrative. You should be able to find it in Obsidian. If you just link it somewhere, then you'll know where the source file is for that. So you can...
DOT Developmental Model 2014?
Nope. That's another one. Coat integrative.
Integrated Definition Coaching 2009?
Yeah, that's the one.
Cool.
So that's the paper that's got the definition and it's got the explanations of each area as well. That's one of many papers that covers the definition of effective coaching, which is extensive, but definition of effective coaching is something that I haven't seen actually replicated inside of educators, especially public educators, or teaching.
Yeah.
So I use this instead. Another example of where coaching is ahead of like the other fields for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Or from what I found anyway. But yeah, so thanks everyone for listening. But went off on a bit of a tangent towards the end, but yeah.
That's such a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, us ADHD people, you know.
Yeah.
Us ADHD neurodiverse people. Yeah, we're always diverging conversations, you know. Right. I'm going to go before we get cancelled. Bye.